Chris, you need to breathe. You need to breathe.
Weight cutting is a part of many combat sports and virtually every sport which has weight classes, and it is a largely debated topic in MMA. Most fighters will tell you cutting weight is the real fight. Fighting in the cage is the easy part. If you've been a fan of MMA for any appreciable length of time, you've seen your fair share of brutal weight cuts. Fighters who are elite athletes rendered barely able to walk to the stage, all life drained from their eyes, and bodies withered to half their size, just to have a slight advantage in the cage. And oftentimes, that advantage is non-existent. After all, if everyone cuts weight, then it's almost as if no one does. It's not uncommon for fighters to attempt to cut 20, 25, or even 30 pounds leading up to a fight. Paulo Costa, who fights at 185 pounds, says he gets up to over 225 pounds between fights. We've seen countless fighters be hospitalized due to weight cut issues, failed kidneys, fainting, heart failure, gallbladder failure, decreased brain function, hormonal imbalances, and even death. It's a nasty part of the sport we love with no end in sight. But the best we can do is try and understand why these problems arise and how to mitigate them. In this video, we will discuss the science behind weight cutting and possible solutions to the extreme lengths these fighters go to. It goes without saying, the purpose of weight cutting is to lose enough weight to make the division weight limit. But how does it work? Most MMA fighters are already cut and have low body fat, so by the time they get to their fight camp, there's not enough excess body fat to lose an appreciable amount of weight, so they resort to cutting water from the body. If fighters just wanted to cut to the nearest weight class, that could usually be done simply with a handful of sauna trips. But they usually want to drop 2 or more classes down from their natural weight. Trying to cut 20 pounds plus of water doesn't happen easily. The body fights to reserve as much water as possible and to avoid severe hydration while the fighters push themselves further towards it. To beat the body's mechanisms and shed the pounds requires both iron will and extreme pseudo-medical practices. The first and foremost method is cutting all carbs and electrolytes from the diet a couple weeks out from the fight. A single gram of carbohydrates in your body will hold up to 4 grams of water, and sodium will cause the body to retain more water to dilute the increased sodium concentration. This is combated by eating a low to no carb diet and drinking large amounts of water for a couple weeks to push the body to enter a so-called flushing mode, where you will have to urinate constantly and drain your body of all sodium and excess carbohydrates. Then, during fight week, water intake will be cut to next to nothing while the body is still in flushing mode, causing rapid loss of body water content. Although this is effective, cutting carbs and electrolytes is very dangerous. Combining low or no carbs with an already low-fat diet depletes the body of energy, especially for athletes who need lots of it. The brain uses 20% or more of the body's caloric intake, mostly in the form of carbohydrates, which are broken down into glucose, or to the glycogen stores in the liver. Both of these are reduced to extreme lows, which can cause reduced cognitive function and headaches. Combining this sharp reduction in energy stores in the body with shedding all sodium from the body can have combined effects. Cutting sodium will often take large amounts of potassium with it, and both potassium and sodium are essential for proper muscle function. This combination is why the most common symptom of harsh weight cuts are cramps, fatigue, headaches, and a general lack of energy. Although a strict diet and training routine and controlled water and electrolyte intake is the bread and butter of a proper weight cut, it's not enough on its own. Done properly, this method can expect to shed roughly 10 to 15 pounds depending on how much body water the fighter started out with and how much muscle mass they have. The majority of water shed from weight cuts come from the muscles, since they are made up of about 79% water. Losing 10 to 15 pounds isn't sufficient to achieve the cuts pro MMA fighters want, so they will supplement the cut with some extreme measures, which is where the danger really picks up. Once the body loses a certain amount of water, it will become reluctant to give up on any more without force, and this is where the flushing stops. The most common way utilized to force the body to shed more water is sweat. Whether it's through dressing up in a trash bag and hitting the treadmill, spending hours in the sauna, or taking hot Epsom salt baths, fighters find a way. The body can't overheat, so these methods will overrule the body's desire to not lose any more hydration. The purpose of the trash bag, sauna, and hot salt baths is to do 2 things: increase temperature and humidity. The higher the humidity, the more the body will sweat, and when you're submerged in water, that's 100% humidity. The reason this happens is because the way sweat cools you down is by releasing water through your pores, which absorbs heat and cools your body as the sweat evaporates. When it's humid, the sweat can't evaporate as freely, so the heat is trapped, so the body releases more sweat to try harder to cool the body. This hits its maximum in hot baths because sweat can't evaporate at all. The danger arises here because the body is already drained of much of its water at this point and might struggle to effectively cool the body. This can lead to skin damage and faster aging of the skin, impaired organ function, and lots of pain and cramps. To try and aid the sweating process, fighters often use creams or lotions that attempt to open the pores for easier perspiration. On top of trying to sweat, fighters will often use diuretics to help pee out more water after the body stops wanting to lose more water through urine. This is where the most dangerous side effects of weight cutting really take hold. One of the most commonly seen issues with water cuts is reduced kidney function or kidney failure. Daniel Cormier was hospitalized for this very thing. The kidneys are responsible for filtering and removing waste through the body through filtering blood. When the body becomes dehydrated, the blood thickens and waste material and acid become concentrated. This buildup waste, including muscle proteins called myoglobin, can clog the kidneys, impeding their ability to do their job and cause failure. If kidneys fail, it can cause a toxic buildup of waste and acid in the body. Even if the kidneys don't completely shut down, they can still get damaged. Cutting as little as 5% of your body mass within 24 hours can cause permanent damage to your kidneys and hormonal balances. Repeated weight cuts will take a cumulative toll on the kidneys, causing reduced kidney function that can worsen over time, possibly leading to kidney failure. This causes many fighters to have to retire prematurely. As bad as that might sound, it doesn't end there. Arguably the most dangerous side effect of weight cutting is what it does to the brain. The brain is 75 to 80% water, and a loss of even 2% can negatively impact its function, such as acute changes in memory and attention. The most dangerous part of a dehydrated brain is that it's more prone to concussions, and therefore more prone to knockouts. Being dehydrated not only reduces the water in the brain, but also decreases the amount of fluid surrounding the brain that helps cushion some of the impact when taking strikes to the head. The same idea applies to the brain. This can cause fighters to suffer unnecessary brain trauma, which can lead to other problems like CTE. Although fighters do rehydrate after weigh-ins, they often don't rehydrate to 100% by fight time. So, now that we've talked about why weight cutting is so dangerous, why is it a thing, and what do we do about it? It's obvious that the reason fighters do it is for a competitive advantage, but that advantage is often so small or non-existent, but because everyone does it, you can't not do it. So how can we eliminate this unnecessarily dangerous aspect of the sport? Other organizations around the world have already started down this path. ONE FC recently implemented hydration tests for their fighters, where they will check the hydration levels of fighters at a certain point out of the fight day and compare it to their hydration at weigh-ins. This can help limit fighters going to extreme lengths to cut dangerous levels of water. Another possible solution, which was implemented in late 2019 by the California State Athletic Commission, is that a fighter cannot weigh more than 15% above what they weighed in at during weigh-ins on fight day, which is another reasonable solution to protect fighters. So, since we have a couple viable options, why don't we see these strategies implemented by the UFC? Well, there are a couple reasons: inconvenience and a lot of red tape. If these new rules are implemented, it would require many fighters to shift weight classes, which will make a mess of the rankings and divisional hierarchies, and even champions may have to shift. The second issue is that the UFC doesn't get to make these rules, the athletic commissions do. This is why California can have the 15% rule while other states don't. Getting a unified change would be difficult and likely take some time. ONE FC decided to implement their hydration testing after 21-year-old fighter Yang Jianbing tragically passed away from cardiopulmonary failure from cutting weight for a fight in 2015. It was a sad moment in the sport's history, but what's even more sad is that that was not the first or last instance of fighters passing away from weight cut related problems. We just have to hope that it doesn't take a tragedy like that for these changes to be put into place in the States and around the world. Thanks for watching our video. If you liked our content, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, Don't forget to check the link in the description below where you can join MMA Access's Discord server and connect with other MMA fans across the globe.